Alright, so the game adaptation of Into the Pit has been out for a couple months now, and despite being absolutely S tier, it has been causing at least one problem within the community, that being the debate of whether or not it's supposed to fit into our currently standing game timeline. Now, unlike a Twitter user, yes, I still call it that, I'm not gonna just call you a mentally ill dumbass for, well, thinking about this differently than I do, but I am here to say that against what I presume is the dominant opinion, I don't think it's supposed to take place within the same universe, at least as it currently stands. But in order for me to talk about that, I need to talk about why it would be believed Into the Pit is part of the game universe to begin with. Let's start with the most bare bones reason that I'm sure is the sole reason for at least 50% of people, and that's the simple fact that it is a game, and as a game should belong to the game universe. However, the immediate hiccup comes from, well, let's just look at FNAF's books. They are clearly not all connected. Well, I think at one point Frights and Tales were going to be connected, but then they retconned it out or something like that. Either way, the novel trilogy is definitely not connected to either of them, so simply using the type of media as an argument will clearly not pass. However, if that's all there was to it, this wouldn't even be a discussion to begin with. So let's move on to some more legitimate reasons. Next up is generally how people connect the story of Into the Pit to the games in the first place. Believing that Frights directly connects to the game universe seemed a little far-fetched even among believers, hence why the compromise of Stitch Line Games was made, which is the argument, or I guess I should say theory, that anything related to the Stitch Wraith specifically was canon to the game timeline. Now, Into the Pit actually falls into this line because the ball pit featured in the story actually ends up being an important part of the very end of the Stitch Wraith story. However, there's a flaw with the Stitch Line Games theory's logic, and that's the damn Gigantamax Garbodor that is William Afton. If I gave you the full story, we would be here all day. So the SparkNotes version is that the man in room 1280 establishes that there is a burnt beyond recognition person, yes, person, as in he's alive, that is actually William Afton. And eventually, his body explodes. No, I'm not joking. Which, through a series of events, leads to him eventually being connected to the Stitch Wraith, and then later becoming a 15-foot tall garbage rabbit. Now, the main problem, of many, at hand here is that there is no way this is possible unless it were to take place after Pizzeria Simulator, and not only do I definitely not believe they managed to recover William's body from this and remove him from the suit, but a large majority of people, including people on FNAF's current development teams, from what it seems, want William to remain dead after this game, so Now, with that being said, you might be thinking that just because Into the Pit as a game exists, doesn't mean we have to include the rest of the Stitch Wraith stuff. And you are actually right, we don't. Yet. But in the meantime, let's talk about details regarding Into the Pit itself that might disprove the shared timeline idea. First off, despite what people may tell you, the story is not actually about time travel. Pretty much everything from within the pit is actually created from the collective memories and agony of the children murdered at this Freddy Fazbear's location, and that includes the yellow rabbit itself. I bring this up because in the game adaptation that we are discussing, the children you meet and save from near-death experiences throughout the game are likely the kids who ended up being murdered in this incident. Granted, there's also the corpses Oswald finds near the beginning of the game, but they're completely gone later. So I think it's just a weird effect of this whole memory dimension. And if you do want to count them as well, then that would actually make like 10 victims, which doesn't line up with any incident we've heard about so far in the game timeline. Anyway, back to the main point. Going off the logic that the kids you save are the ones who died here, well, none of them line up with the kids we hear about regarding the actual missing children's incident, neither by name nor death. So, unless there was another 1985 incident we have yet to hear about, it's not looking like the details properly match up for this to be the same universe. And then there's one last thing I want to try and cover, and that is actually the game itself from a real-life perspective. The game was originally intended to actually be made as a 16-bit game for the Super Nintendo because, fun fact, that's actually kinda what Mecha Cat Studios specializes in, but the game just kinda grew well beyond the scopes of that as it was developed, and turned into a full-fledged game. But with this being the original intentions for the game, not only do I doubt something actually intended for the main game timeline would be made so specifically, but I also suspect that the likely intention was going to be that Into the Pit would be an in-universe Super Nintendo game that Fazbear Entertainment would have made in collaboration with an in-universe version of Nintendo, which is a wild sentence, but it makes a lot of sense, likely being another one of their little cover-up attempts using video games. So I guess in a weird way, Into the Pit actually would be part of the game universe, just as a video game, which, while yes, does technically prove me wrong, we all know this isn't what people mean when they claim this, and I feel like it's a more likely and reasonable solution than it actually taking place in the game universe. Anyway, with that being said, I don't know what the hell I'm gonna do next on this channel, but whatever it is, I'll see you then. Bye.